Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Flags in a Gym, a podcast dedicated to all things color guard. My name is Eric. I'm your host and resident color guard nerd. And today's episode is the first in my regional recap episodes for the 2026 season. We're talking all about the Kansas City Regional and some interesting notes from the others. So sit back, relax, and let's talk some color guard. Before we get into everything, I do have a couple quick shout outs to give. I want to say hey girl hey to Chris Carvelli over at Etude. We connected this past week and I have a really funny story to tell you about him that will be at the end of the episode. So make sure to check that out. And then one more quick shout out to a diva over at Thomas Jefferson High School. We were actually chatting on Reddit because she posted needing help on a toss and I had commented and then we went back and forth. I said I was at the show. And she was like, oh my God, you do the podcast? I'm like, yeah. So, hey, girl. Hey to you. I told you I'd give you a shout out too. I never got your name, but hey. The first regional weekend is in the books. So let's talk about a couple things about the weekend so far. Based on what I've seen, shows and show announcements, it looks like we're going to have a lot of rain or umbrella shows this year. I mean, the season is still young. That could change. No hope situation yet. I haven't heard a single song like 5 or 6 times yet. I have heard Gabriel's Oboe twice, and I have heard She Used to Be Mine twice. So those are leading candidates right now. She Used to Be Mine might be going further just because that song kind of screams color guard, and I think a lot of people like to use it. And obviously the big talk of this weekend were the scores coming out of Texas. Like what's going on down in Texas? The scores there were absolutely crazy compared to the other regionals. We may have quite a few reclassifications coming down the line. As of this time right now where I'm recording on Monday, I'll be posting anything that happens in the future. The reclassification process can take a little while, so it could be after the next regional before we even find out. And then WGI doesn't even do a big announcement about it. If the guards themselves decide to say, hey, we got promoted, that's the easiest way to find out. But generally, we don't find out until you look at the schedule and like, wait a minute, why is this school in open now? Or why is this group in world now? That's kind of how we find out. But if you don't understand, let's quickly talk about reclassification and how it works. I pulled this right from the WGI policy manual. It's in section 9.1 if you want to go check it out. It lists all of them for color guard, winds, percussion. It's all in there. It says all color guards in the A and open classes are subject to review for potential misclassification, meaning you're in the wrong class and you need to be in a new one. So they can also do this to move you down, which is trickier because you have to compete in the same class as your circuit. So if you are a Scholastic A guard in your circuit, you have to compete in Scholastic A in WGI. This is a rule that exists, so guards can't jump around to like make finals or things like that. Like I'm an A guard, but there's only like 3 open guards. I'm going to go to open and maybe I can make finals, that kind of thing. It also avoids guards from competing in a level down. So you're Scholastic Open in your circuit, but then you drop down to Scholastic A for the regional. WGA is like, nah, fam, we ain't doing that. So anybody can be reviewed for potential misclassification. Generally, though, we're looking at promotions, not demotions. You can only be reviewed at a WGI regional contest unless it's approved by the director of color guard. I don't know what situation would arise. And you can be reviewed multiple times throughout the regional calendar. So you go out this weekend and you get reviewed. You can get reviewed at the next regional. It's not a one and done kind of thing. Just because they say no this time doesn't mean they'll say no next time. The policy is that the top 2 Scholastic and Independent A guards and the first place open class color guards are automatically reviewed at every regional. So if you win your class in Scholastic A or Independent A or you're second place, you're automatically going to be reviewed. Open class, the winner is automatically reviewed. The initial review is done by the education coordinator, the chief judge, and the director of color guard. Those 3 people independently evaluate your program. So they look at you, they look at the scores, they look at the video, and they decide on their own if you need to be reclassified. And if they all agree separately without conferring with each other, it's then immediately referred to the 5 instructors for final review. Now, here's my one thing that I don't understand, and I'll try to get an answer on this to clarify it later. It just says in the policy book, 5 instructors. It doesn't say who these instructors are. Like, I don't know if this is the steering committee, the board of directors. It says 5 instructors. Like, those are the literal words from the policy manual. So whoever these 5 people are, they look at you and do a final review. If 3 of them vote to reclassify, so a majority, you are reclassified. So if 3 of these 5 say, "Yep, you belong in open," or "Nope, you belong in world," they will move you. There are no further appeals after that secondary review. So if you get reviewed and that chief judge, the director of color guard, and the education coordinator all say, "Yep, they need to be moved," and then 3 out of the 5 of the next panel say, "Yep, they gotta be moved. Congrats," or "Sorry, girl, you're moving up to the next class." So some groups that I think we need to watch for reclassification are Wiley High School. They won Scholastic A at their regional, and they already broke an 80, which is wild. Origins Open with an 81.3, and then Marcus High School and Scholastic Open. Now, they only had like a 77, and it weren't, I know a lot of circuits have bump scores. WGI, from my understanding, does not have a bump score. Like if you get a 75 or higher, you're automatically reviewed. In lieu of that, they do this, the top 2 are reviewed, and then they can choose to review others at their own discretion, but the top 2 in A class and the top 1 in open are automatically reviewed no matter what. Even if you get a 60, you're going to get reviewed. Obviously, if you're not scoring that high, you're not blowing the score out of the water, they're probably gonna be like, "We don't really need to review this." They're fine where they are. Or they may say, "You know what? Maybe they need to move down," which could be tricky because then you're talking, especially on the independent side, the ages of your performers. If you can't move down because of age, now that open is 25, that's something to look at. But those 3 groups, Wiley, Origins Open, and Marcus High School, like 5 or 6 pointed second place. They popped a big number in open. And I've seen guards with lower scores get promoted to world, and then unfortunately they end up flopping in world because I don't think they're ready, which I is my kind of pet peeve and my issue with this process is I feel sometimes guards get promoted when they're not ready. I think back to I don't remember the year. It was a while ago. It might have been 5 or 6 years at this point. I think it was Jordan High School out of Texas went to a regional in Scholastic A, and they were done. They were clicking that season. They were done. Nobody else was, and so they popped a decent number at a regional, and they got promoted to open. And then they went to open and got slaughtered because they weren't ready for open. Even though WGI was like, "Oh, we think you're ready." They weren't. They were just done. They had a good run. The show was done very, very well. I think they had like a table and like magnolia flowers on it. If anybody from Jordan High School or in that area knows what I'm talking about. But anyway, that's my concern with some of these reclassifications is sometimes, okay, you won, but are you truly ready for the next class? So we'll see what happens. Just to think back last year, we had Emerson High School get moved out of A into open. They ended up in 5th place at Dayton this same weekend. Granted, theirs was within their circuit. They got promoted within their circuit from A to open. So they had to compete in open at WGI. But they went to this weekend's regional last year and got like a 74 or 75. And they ended up getting promoted. Fast forward to this year, and you have Wiley popping an 80. Like, sorry, guys, I think you're going to open. I think, my guess. My guess is those 3 have a very strong chance of getting reclassified into the next class. So Wiley would go to Scholastic Open, Marcus would go to Scholastic World, and Origins Open would go to World, which would be very interesting because Origins already has a World team. So they would have 2 World teams, and this is where things could get very interesting. So we shall see what comes down the line. Before we get into the shows, just a couple of notes about the recap that I'm going to do for the Kansas City Guards. Remember, it is early. The guards are not done and they're still droppy. All right. We're just going to blanket that statement for everybody. We know it's not clean. We know it's not perfect. It was February 7th. All right. It was a lot of groups, probably first performance because of the snow and the ice storm that came through that probably canceled everybody's first true performance. So everybody's coming out this week. Also, the flow camera isn't the best. So the images on your digital flags aren't super clear, so I'm going off of what I can see. So if I say it looks like a flower and it's actually a dinosaur, I'm sorry. It's what I can see. And I'm also going to add something new to the recap this year. And for each guard, I'm going to include a comment on what I would do or what I would focus on if this were my guard. So just a little fun, a little constructive criticism, just a little help. Many times, we all, as color guard directors and designers, we suffer from what I call the monkey house syndrome. And if you've ever gone to the zoo, and you've gone into the monkey house or any of those inside places that just reeks because, the animals stink. They do. And you walk in and you're like, "Oh God, it stinks in here." And then after like a couple minutes, you're like, "Oh, it's not that bad." And then another couple minutes, you don't even smell anything. Same kind of process here. We are with these shows all the time, constantly, and we become numb. I don't want to say to issues, but just to things like, oh, actually, I think I'm starting to like this transition, or actually, I think this does work. You become numb to it. And then the judges come in, you go out in front of the judges, and then they're like, that transition's not working, or that moment is not working. It's not effective, whatever. And then you kind of get that slap in the face. You're like, oh, that's right. I need to fix this. So I'm just kind of doing that same thing, just saying, this is what I see. And if the directors or instructors happen to hear it and they want to listen, great. If they don't, great. It's their show. I'm just offering my 2 cents. That's why I'm here. Nothing hateful. And I'm also going to avoid saying, y'all need to clean because it's the first weekend of February. Everybody needs to clean. Everybody's dirty. Everybody's dropping. We're looking at structural and design things that I think could help them improve and just make the show better overall. And this is what I would do if this was my color guard. I'm not saying you need to do this. I'm going to say it as, if this were my guard, this is what I would focus on next. We're going to go over all of the world and open groups, all of the independent A, and probably the top 5 of Scholastic A. We're going to talk about what everyone's doing, how it looks, the concepts, fun moments, all of those things. And I'm going to move a little quickly through the A class, and then we'll go a little more in depth with the open, and then a little more in depth with the world, just because that's how the shows kind of go, right? I mean, the world guards get super in depth with their concepts. And as you come down to the A classes tend to be a little more straightforward. So let's start with a quick acknowledgement of our Regional A winner, Hickman High School. Congrats to you. They were a great Regional A show using Don't Speak from No Doubt. Throwback to my teenage years. I was like, wow, this is a throwback song. And I was honestly surprised they got the copyright for it. They're a small guard of 8 and they look great. They are hammering basics with some fun little tricks thrown in, and they're starting to experiment with the triad, and we love that. If this were my guard, I'd keep hammering those basics and technique and not overrate my show. You guys are doing great. Keep up the work. It looks great. I love Regional A. There are so many Regional A guards across the country, and it is valid color guard, and it deserves the love. So shout out to Hickman High School. Great job. Let's move on to Scholastic A. We had 12 groups and finals. We're going to talk about the top 5 because if I talk about all 12, we'll be here till Friday. And I don't want to talk till Friday, and you don't want to listen to me talk till Friday. Fifth place was O'Fallon Township High School with their show called Stole the Show. And they're using a cover of the song Stole the Show. And their floor is set up like kind of like a film reel. It's kind of black and with that bluish tint and white through it. And you can see the film reel strip on the top and the bottom of the floor. They start with opening body and they move to flags that are staged on the floor for a flag feature. Like they're pointed in like star formations. And from what I took from the show, the second half is stronger than the first, and their weapons have some good talent. The catches will come, but they need to come soon because time flies and A class is brutal. So think of that. If this were my group, I'd focus on adding some more motion to the staging and choreography. There are parts where it feels a little slow or stagnant and it could use a burst of energy. So if I were designing this show or I was instructing this group, that would be my focus. I'm like, let's see where we can infuse some more motion and staging. It's got a lot of great potential. You can see that the training is there. So good job, O'Fallon Township. Fun fact, O'Fallon Township has probably my most underrated Scholastic A winning show ever. They won in 2011. Well, the show was about time, but they used an a cappella version of Under Pressure. And I feel like they were always overshadowed because Mechanicsburg came in second to them that year. And Mechanicsburg went on to become the big Scholastic World Guard and do all the, remember they did the Lana Del Rey show with the water, and then they did the mirror show, and then they did the child abduction show. Like they got to be the big program where O'Fallon Township never got to that point. But if you can find it, 2011 O'Fallon, their Scholastic A show that they won WGI with is amazing. It is like probably the perfect A class show for me because it is a good mix of training, technique, but it's also exploring more advanced design options out there. So check that out if you can find it. It's not on YouTube, but sometimes it may pop up here and there, but maybe somebody has like another kind of bootleg video of it. Fourth place was Rockwood Summit, and their show is called Who Do I Call Now? And they're using the song of the same name by Sophia Kamara. I'm going off of what Shazam told me, so I don't know how to fully pronounce this. They have a gorgeous floor that fades from like an antique tiled look on most of side 2, and then on a diagonal it kind of fades into black in the front left of side 1. And it starts with a voicemail saying like I miss you and all that. There's a little table in the back right and some props along the back. They have a very nice all rifle feature for the bridge of the song, and this is where I would focus if this was my program. It's a good moment, but it definitely needs more impact, right? Like you have this moment that's happening and I like it, but I don't love it. I need some more oomph in that moment. So if that were my guard, that's where I would work. There's lots of great elements. This is the highlight of the show, and it just needs a little more in it. They end with a lovely flag feature. Great job, Rockwood Summit. Third place was Lafayette High School, and their show is called Pieces of You, and they made finals last year in Scholastic A. They were 19th in finals. I remember reading a fun story about them. I don't remember where I read it, if it was on like WGI's website or if it was like a local news piece about them, but it was a little story about them making finals for the first time ever. It was really cute and a sweet story of them talking how they were sitting in the stands to watch world semis or something like that. And then their all of their phones blew up when they realized they made finals and they had to leave because they had to go get ready for finals. Something like that. It was really, really sweet and a fun story to read. So if anybody from Lafayette's out there, I would love to link the story. I know I linked it last year, but I'd love to link it again for people. But their show this year is it's a raindrop floor with a window prop in the back right corner, and they're using the song "Every Time You Go Away," covered by Cynthia Erivo. And they have these beautiful, they're like a iridescent or like a sheer lame flag that's in a lavender shade to kind of match the purple tones on the floor. They use it at the start. The weapons are very good, and they have a fun gun feature in front of the window prop in the back right corner. And then for the flag feature, they come out with a deep purple version with like a hint of red in it in that same sheer material. It's a cute show. I like it. I think the pacing of it needs a little work. Just there's some moments that seem to, I don't want to say drag, but just feel a little slow. So I would just kind of look at a couple of those moments like where can I maybe add some motion or just a way to kind of increase the pacing so I don't feel like the show is slowing down on me. But I love it. I'm hoping they make finals again this year. We know Scholastic A is brutal for making finals. So just making finals is a huge achievement in itself. I don't care where you place. If you're making finals, that is a true sign of quality in your program. Moving on to second place, we have Blue Spring High School A, and their show was called A Nocturne for a Sunset. And this used a few different pieces. From what Shazam told me, they used Nocturne by Lofi. I have no idea how you pronounce this lady's name. I've seen this name pop up on my Pandora Christmas mix. And I have no idea who they are. And then they end up using a version of Gabriel's oboe as well. And the floor is striking. It's absolutely beautiful. It's got fades of gold and tan and then burgundy into white. So there's like a strip that goes from gold into white, and then the next strip next to it goes from white into gold, like it's a reverse. And then there's a huge block in the front right that bleeds from burgundy in the front corner, like towards white, going towards the center of the floor. It's really pretty. And then they have vertical props that are staged around the floor and they mirror the color tones of where they're placed. So like there's a burgundy-ish prop in the burgundy area, there's a goldish prop in the gold area, those things like that. Really, really pretty. They open with a nice body feature before moving into flags in various shades of peach and pink, and it's really pretty. I love when guards use these solid silks and they just kind of take a bunch of colors in a color family and just kind of tell their color story that way. I love it so much more than like digital flags, to be quite honest. I just, when you're pulling out that deep pink and that peach and that soft pink over here, and then that orangey pink, and they all just kind of spinning around each other. And it's not even like a full like ombre effect. It's just more of just kind of mix. I love the texture that that gives to a show. So when they pulled out these flags, I was like, these are beautiful. I love it. I love it. And I hope they're the show silks. They use the stage very well and they set moments in various areas on the floor. Like they have that big chunk painted on the floor or designed on the floor. I was talking about that goes from burgundy to white. There's a line about 2/3 of the way back, and then they have a line of props there, and they take the entire color guard behind those props. So they're really condensed and working in a tight space behind those props for a little section of the floor. And they keep doing that. It's staged wonderfully. If this were my program, I'd look at the transition for when they go into Gabriel's oboe for the music part, because the transition of what's happening on the floor feels a touch weird, but it's still early. It might even be their final idea. But me, this is Eric's guard. I'm like, I'm going to look at this transition because it just looks a little weird to me. The ending flag feature is beautiful. And clearly, they have an insane program here at Blue Springs because they also have an open guard that did extremely well here as well. So, congrats to the A program. Our Scholastic A winner was Edwardsville High School, and their show is called A World to Rediscover. And this is another finalist from last year. And if I remember correctly, this was the Fireflies show from last year. They were right around like 12th ish somewhere. I'm trying to remember back to last year. There were so many Scholastic A guards I saw, but I'm pretty sure this is the Firefly show from last year. They're using As If We Never Said Goodbye by Voctave, clearly like an a cappella kind of group. And the soundtrack is very dynamic and there's tons of musicality to explore and work with, which I love. As If We've Never Said Goodbye is from Sunset Boulevard. It's a great piece. And I really like this version of it. The floor is beautiful. It's black and gray and white. And I don't think it's the intent, but it looks like kind of like a cloud and darkness. Like the white portion kind of looks like a cloud, like an abstract cloud, not like your typical what you draw in kindergarten, the curvy lines with the flat bottom. Just more of kind of like a puff of whiff of smoke or a wispy cloud kind of amongst a black and gray floor. And they start with a big body feature in the beginning into a saber soloist. Their rifles are super strong. They have tons of solo tosses and group moments. The silks in the show are beautiful. They're fades of color with black, and it really suits the whole feel and design of the show. Like when you see the silks on the floor, you're like, I get it. It makes perfect sense. And then they have this flag feature that feels like a 2-in-1 because you kind of get two features in one. The midsection, they pull out this flag. I don't think it's the final silk because it doesn't kind of match the color story they're telling with the other two flags they use. So I'm sure this is just a filler flag until they get the final one. But they have a flag feature with this like whitish kind of flag. And then they all go to the edge and they start coming out with these rainbowy flags. And they're gorgeous, stunning. I want one. Edwardsville, send me a flag when the season's over, please. I love you. If you have one that's kind of orangey, I'll pay you for it. I promise. But yeah, I wonder if the ending flag feature would have more impact in a different section of the floor because they come across the floor and they spin and then they all move to the back. And they're all packed in the back doing this flag feature for about 30 seconds. And I wonder what that would look like, maybe staged in a different part of the floor. I like that they're going somewhere different because I think the natural inclination we would all have would be to pull everybody to the front and have that compact moment in the front of the floor. But if this were my show, I might play with the placement of that or maybe look at breaking it up because they're crammed in the back for a long time. And I'm like, maybe we could do a little something more there. That's what I would do. It's very good though. And I think it'll make finals again if they keep up the work. I mean, they've got a very good foundation. They made finals last year. They know what they're doing. I could see this making finals again. And I seriously, after the season, can I have one of those flags, please? Moving on to Independent A, we had 4 groups in finals. Unfortunately, there was kind of a heartbreaking situation for River City Rhythm. They missed finals. They were 5th in prelims, but it was because of a penalty. They had almost a 2-point penalty that pushed them from 2nd down to 5th. So they missed finals because of a penalty. And I hate seeing that happen. I mean, we saw Paramount a couple years ago lose a medal. I know I keep bringing this up. Y'all are like, why you got to keep harping on this? But they missed a medal because of a 1/10 penalty. They would have tied with Blessed Sack, but they got a 1/10 penalty and that knocked them to 4th. And I hate seeing that because it sucks. I mean, let's be real. That sucks. So River City Rhythm, I hope to see you again. I missed your show in prelims, unfortunately. Unfortunately, you weren't able to make it into finals. But our 4th place group was 901 Performance Ensemble, and they're doing Used to Be Mine. Their show is called Used to Be Mine, and they're using the song Used to Be Mine by Voctave, the same group that Edwardsville is using. And 901 Performance Ensemble is from Missouri State, and Missouri State has 3 programs. And I've talked to somebody there. Apparently, their fall program at this has like over 100 performers in the color guard. Like it's huge, and it makes perfect sense because they have 3 indoor guards. This is their A guard. National Avenue is their open guard. They were an A guard last year and got promoted. And then they have the Pride of Missouri State in Independent World. So this program has 3 separate color guards in 3 separate classes. And each guard is huge, like at least 30 performers in each guard. So kudos to them for trying to manage. Whoever is managing this program, wow. I mean, I know each group has its own staff, but still, there's got to be somebody at the top of the ladder kind of managing all of this. Snaps to you. Props to you, mama. They have a red marble floor with dark red uniforms and it looks like a full back skirt on the uniform. And this show was fine to me. It's like a standard A-class show, but I feel like it's just lacking something to make it stand out. And I think part of the problem with the show is it feels very cramped. And because they have like 30 kids on the floor, they're in these big billowy costumes that take up more space. You have that big skirt. So when they move, they're taking up more space. And then the floor seems a little small. I mean, for 30 people, especially now with what some of the world guards pull out. I mean, they pull out these floors that barely fit in gyms anymore. I feel like a bigger floor could help them, but obviously they have a digitally printed floor that ain't changing now. No, I'm not ragging on it. It feels very pedestrian and it lacks some excitement. So I would look at finding ways to create more emotional impact and connection with the audience to make me want to get into it and cheer. I mean, they have your standard, they have some weapon tosses, and they have a flag feature, and it just everything looks very cramped. And I think because of the tightness of everything, the show doesn't get a chance to breathe. And so as a viewer, I'm just looking like they look like they're standing on top of each other. And that's kind of where I get stuck. I can't get past that. That's where I would work. Third place, we have Avant Garde, and they're doing the Scarlet Letter. And they're using a song everybody knows by Sigrid. I'm going off Shazam, y'all. I don't know half of these people, probably more than half. But they have a black swirled floor. It's like a black on black swirled floor. And they have red strips that are rolled up onto tubes that they roll out throughout the show. And they end up making an A shape on the floor for the Scarlet Letter, right? They're still in practice blacks. That's okay. So are a lot of people. And their weapons are strong and they spin well and they have a great performance attitude. Like this is a guard that performs really well. Like they have that like kind of vibe in their face and their body. Like you can tell this guard is taught how to perform. And I like that. And I was honestly shocked by their score as I thought it was better than it placed. But then I went back on a rewatch and I noticed that they have some great moments throughout the show, but the connection of those ideas is where they need to work. You have your vertical moments, which are your big impact moments, right? We have a flag feature here, then we have a rifle feature here, we have a body feature here, and then those horizontal moments, the connection between them is kind of where they need to put a little extra work because you don't want it to look forced, as in I have my flag feature here. Now we do body feature, do weapon feature, right? You don't want it to look like that. You want everything to just kind of flow and kind of happen naturally. It's like we hear that word organic a lot on our judges tapes, right? We want it to look organic and not look forced. And this is kind of what I'm talking about, where this show looks a little forced at the moment, where you want things to kind of happen naturally. Their ending flag feature, they start spinning on the red strips that make the A, which is a very cool design, very smart design idea. And then they move to the good old fashioned standard block form, that we all do, and finish out their flag feature. And I think this show has a lot of great potential. It's still early in the season, so they have time to jazz and fix this up. I don't want to say the judges hated it, but just when you're looking at the scores and you're like, why didn't that place higher? So I'm like, I didn't hate this as much as the judges did, and that's where I'm going with this. So I thought it should have scored higher. I liked it. So I hope they keep working because, yeah, I think there's a lot of potential in this show. Second place, we have Ember Independent, and their show. I couldn't get the show title. The announcer was kind of hard to hear. Is it In Ella's Words? I believe Ember. If somebody's listening to this, let me know, or maybe I'll try to find a show announcement and see. But that's what I think it is. And they're using the song "Mama" by Beth Hart. Now, I remember this song because a Scholastic A Guard used this in like 2003, 2004. I believe it was like New Palestine High School or New Palestine. I don't know how they pronounce it, out of like Indiana. And this song has tons of emotion and it's perfect for color guard. If you haven't heard it, you should listen to it. It's a slow burn song. It's jazzy, it's soulful, it's got rasp, and it's got a lot of weight to it, which I'm saying on purpose right now. And it's just great. And it builds and builds and builds and builds. It's great for color guard. They have a marbled floor with three small props in the back. They're a little vertical, like a 4x8 prop. They have two brick walls opposite the center, on each side of the center. And then in the center, they have a fireplace prop in the middle with like a painting above the fireplace. It's all painted on there. They start with body and they move to flag and it moves along nicely. But as I mentioned with the song, I feel like the show needs more weight and it needs to feel more grounded to match the intensity of the soundtrack. The soundtrack has lots of rasp and grit from the singer, and I'm not getting that from the performance. It's like when you have a disconnect between the song and the performance. If everybody remembers Drag Race back in the day, Latrice Royale versus Kenya Michaels, and they're doing You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman, and Latrice is all getting into it, and then you have Kenya Michaels who's like ballet dancing and hopping around and doing all these fun tricks and stuff, and you're like, girl, that's not the song. Kind of the same idea here, not to that extreme, but that's just like I'm not seeing what I'm hearing is in I hear the weight and just the grounding in the music. Like the music feels there's a heaviness to it that you're not getting from the performers. They start to get there near the second half, but I really think they can elevate the program by giving it that heaviness. So if this were my guard, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to incorporate that heaviness and that weight into my work, into my choreography, into my body movements to help connect to the soundtrack. Overall, it's a nice show. I just didn't feel like there was anything super memorable about it. But there's plenty of time to spice it up though. Plenty of time. So nice job. First place in Independent A was University of Missouri's Ionic Winter Guard. So we have Missouri, Missouri State, lots of universities at this competition. But yeah, Ionic Winter Guard, and their show is called Maculata. And they're using a piece called Pines and Flowers by Ezio Bosso. It's an instrumental piece. And I did a little researching. So Maculata is also known as the polka dot begonia. It's a plant. And so their floor is the polka dotted leaves of the Maculata begonia. So they're taking this polka dotted plant that's kind of a really standout in the horticulture world because of its polka dots and making a show out of it, which I love. They have no uniforms yet. They're still in practice blacks. And we start with opening body into sabers and then flags join in. We have a little partner work happen before we move into the rifle section of the show. Weapons had a bit of a rough run in finals, but you can see the training is clearly there. They have a nice all rifle feature in the front part of side 2, and the midsection is incomplete, completely understandable. Snow, ice, I get it. The schools here were closed for like 6 days or so. Like, yeah, people are so far behind. It's totally understandable. With the midsection being incomplete, that would be my focus. Finish it up and get it all flowing smoothly. And obviously, that's going to be their focus too. Like, we got to get the show done right before we start fixing things. That's kind of how we work. And they end with a flag feature with what I'm assuming is a begonia flower on it, from what I can tell. It might be leaves, but it's very pretty. And it's a very nice show. And once it's finished, it should be great. And I like that it's different. It stands out. Like, they pull out this polka dotted leaf flower. Like, what is this? It's not our traditional color guard show that we see a lot of. They're already standing out in that regards, which is great. Yeah, they just need to finish it up and polish it up, and we'll see what happens. Let's move on to Scholastic Open. We had 3 groups competing here. Third place was Bentonville High School Open, and their show was called Metamorphosis by Fran Kafka. And this show was the cockroach show. I'm sure you've already seen the clips that have been flying around. They're cockroaches. It starts with some music and a voiceover, and it's talking about cockroaches. And I love that they're doing something just so off the wall. They have a giant bed in the back left corner, and then their floor is just pretty much just a tan tarp. There's a little texture to it, but it's pretty plain. And then they have the giant bed in the back left corner that stands probably about 6 feet off the ground. I mean, it's a big bed prop, and a lot of things come out from under the bed, obviously, because we're doing a show about cockroaches. They like to hide in dark places. Makes perfect sense. Uniforms is an interesting situation because I'm pretty sure it's not their final uniforms, but they're in all black. They look like practice blacks, where you're just kind of in something black. But then they go to all brown and they all have the same all brown afterwards. So I don't know if the brown is the final. I don't know. But we'll see. Maybe it is what it is. I don't know. They have these really cool flat boards on wheels, like the ones you would use in PE class in elementary school, like when you would play like roller soccer or something like that, those little scooters that you sit on, but these are like longer so you can put your whole torso on them. And they come out from underneath the bed, and those are what the roaches are on. It's like the roaches scurrying around. It's fun. It's fun. There's a lot of weapon in this, and the concept is super fun and it's entertaining. They have a cool part when a girl gets on a guy's shoulders and they're both spinning. She's like doing double time while on his shoulder, and he's doing double time while she's on his shoulder. And they have a really cool head chop moment, where the weapon's tossed and the flag comes over their face, and then they catch their weapon. But they do it instead of just doing like a standard, just like kind of, like where you just pull the flag across. They do a whip 45. So the rifle's tossed and the flag's whip 45 over the rifle's heads, the spinner's heads, and then the rifle comes down and they catch. A cool twist on a classic trick. If this were my guard, I'd have those weapons in toss block hammering tosses and catches into them. The weapons had a very rough run. And I would go home and be like, weapons Tuesday, all day, tosses. We are hammering these down. Just because they did have a rough run, and it was my biggest take from it. And guards were dropping. They were really droppy. Like it was just one of those like, oh, come on, guys. Come on. So this was my guard. I'm getting my weapons in block and getting them together. They have a weapon toss feature. I call them popcorn tosses. We're kind of popcorn features where tosses just kind of happen all over. Everybody's kind of throwing their individual tricks. So they have that happen. Many of those hit the floor, and that's kind of where I'm going with this, with getting them into toss block. And then they come out with these cool seafoam flags. They're like a seafoam color flow camera. They're probably like purple, but because of the camera, they pull up as green. That's just how this always works. I'm like, oh, I love this green flag. And then the guard's like, yeah, no, they're actually like blue or purple or something because of the way the cameras work. It's got a lot of problems. It's a fun concept and it's going to be a crowd favorite. It needs cleaning like everyone else, but those weapons, girl, please get them in block and recenter them. Get them refocused on their catches. Love the idea. I love the fun with it. Get those weapons in block, girl. Love you. Second place, we have Grain Valley High School with their show What's to Come. And this is a promoted guard. They were fifth place in Scholastic A last year. And they're not going to WGI this year, which is sad, but I mean, I get it. It's expensive, and they probably weren't expecting to do so well last year. And then a lot of guards work on that every other or every 3 year kind of program. And they're like, we'll go this year. And then they're super successful. And they're like, oh, we weren't planning on going next year. So it happens. It is a beautiful show. The floor is beautiful, mostly dark brown, and they have like streaked cream and white sections. Like if you had painted your wall brown and then you took like a 3-inch wide paintbrush, put some paint on it, and just made a big streak. You know how you get that like separation from the bristles? Those are what these streaks look like. It's really pretty. No uniforms yet. They are very clearly in practice blacks, which is fine. I have no issue with that. But I just know these are practice blacks because of what they're wearing. And their music has a looping voice track in it that was in a show last year. It goes, there will be better days. There will be better days. There will be better days. And I know somebody used this last year, and I cannot remember who it was. So if you remember who it was, one, can you tell me? And two, can you tell me what this is from? Please share with me because I'm just very interested. But they have a baseline piano piece with other lyric songs that are overlaid it. So they have like a bass song that's all the way through, and then they have like 3, maybe 4 other pieces that just kind of happen to occur over it at times. Their weapons were super strong last year, and this year is no exception. Like seriously, these kids can spin these weapons. They only do rifle. There's no saber, which is fine. And they have so many great solos, and they're done at the correct points for effect. And it doesn't feel gratuitous, it doesn't feel like Trick Palooza. It feels like, oh, we need an impact moment here. Instead of a group toss, let's do a solo toss. And it's done really well. These kids are very solid. I'm actually sad it's not going to Dayton because it could do well. It could. They start with body into an opening rifle double turn in the back corner. Opening flags are beautiful. They match the floor, that same brown with the cream and kind of white streaking on it. And the best moment of the show is when the rifles and flags all come to side 2 and they have a little moment here that's capped with a killer rifle solo. That's a different kind of toss. It's not your standard left-handed toss either, which I love. Tossing from a different part of the gun a different way. Really, really great moment. And then they move to the edge and they start bringing out these rainbow-ish flags for the ending flag feature. I call them rainbowish because they're kind of like marbled of different colors, but it's not like traditional rainbow. Like we're just getting a lot of color that are kind of like bleeding together on the flag. It's really pretty. And the overlay here is the song You Are My Sunshine, like the little kid song, You Are My Sunshine, My Only Sunshine, right? That's overlaid slowly over this piano piece. And if this were my guard, this is where I would focus, this ending flag feature. I feel it can be beefed up more for more effect, but this show's great. Like, I had to pick something to work on. I'm like, honestly, there's no glaring issue or need. I'm like, I'd probably just make the ending flag feature more impactful, make it better. This is one of those keep doing what you're doing, y'all, because it's working. Like, I would just say the ending flag feature could be a little more impactful, a little more oomph in it, a little more difficulty, motion, something like that. Just beef that up. But it's beautiful. I like Green Valley a lot. First place, our Scholastic Open winner is Blue Springs Open, and their show is called To Sit With It. And this has a gorgeous floor of black with streaks of white hinted with blue and or green, depending on where it is on the floor. Sometimes the blue and the green mixed together. Sometimes it's just green. And they have stacks of chairs that act as props all around the floor. So there's a really tall one in the front of side 1. Like it's just chairs stacked like single high, like on top of each other. So like 6 chairs high. And they have a little smaller stack on side 2. And then in back center, there's a huge like pyramid shaped of like, I don't know, like 20, 25 chairs that are just kind of in a mangled mess, which is the intent. And then they have a couple single chairs staged around the floor. They have one pretty much center, one kind of front side one, middle of side two, that kind of thing where they're just kind of staged around. And to me, from what I gather, there's a long narration when you can't hear all of it because people are cheering and, we don't get the direct audio feed. So you're capturing what the camera catches audio wise. But to me, the show is about sitting and processing grief and depression. Like there's a narration at the beginning that kind of helps us understand where the show is going, and the stacked chairs representing how we just kind of pile more and more things that we're just kind of sitting on onto ourselves, right? Instead of working through them, we just kind of pile things onto ourselves and we bottle things up. Like I'm a bottler. I don't know if you're a bottler, but I'm a bottler. And then that cork pops and out comes everything in that big explosion. That's me. I like that they're just kind of playing with the chairs kind of stacking on each other of us just kind of piling onto ourselves of whether it's self-doubt, it's grief, it's depression, whatever, it's responsibilities that we don't want to deal with, whatever. You can kind of take what you want from this. I feel like my take kind of differs from the narration a little bit, which is funny because the narration's telling you exactly what the show's about, but I kind of took it a little differently, which is what I love about the sport and art in general. They open with body into rifle solos and then they move on to rifle and flags. The flags match the floor with it's like black on the bottom of the silk and then there's a shade of blue or green along the top and it's kind of marbled and melded together. The thing I love about it is the flag they pick up matches the coloring in the spot of the floor where they pick it up because there's different colors on the floor. So they have blues and they have greens, and the greens pick up where the green is on the floor, and the blues pick up where the blue is on the floor. And it's a very clever little design nugget. They don't stay there permanently, they end up moving around, but just when they're introduced, they match. It's like an extra extension coming out of the floor because it's the same coloring. Very cool little detail. In the midsection, they move to a rifle feature and the music continues to swell and to build. And this is probably where I'd focus on if this were my show, because I don't see the swelling and the building visually to match what I'm hearing in the soundtrack. Like the music's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and everything's just building and building and building. But I'm not getting that on the floor. They're having a little rifle feature that's nice, but I feel like I'm not getting that building and building and building and building. So they may have another plan for here, but that's what I would look at. And remember, these are just my notes. I'm not hating on anything in these shows at all. Just kind of giving my 2 cents of what I think could make the show better. But the music continues to swell, and we get these really pretty pink flags that come out, and we have our flag feature, and they cap that off with a very nicely done one-handed 45 toss with a jazz split underneath. And then eventually we dissipate off the floor with body, and we're left with a single performer sitting on the chair in the middle of the floor as the narration takes us out to the end. It's very well done. It has lots of great moments, and the only moment I saw on the show that I felt could use a little tweaking or just a little more another look at is that big swelling moment as we lead towards the pink flags. But congrats to you. I look forward to seeing this again. Great job. Let's move on to Independent Open. We had one unit competing. So it was National Avenue from Missouri State, and they were promoted out of Independent A last year. I believe they were fourth in finals. Either way, no matter where they were, I remember they were going to get promoted anyway because of the 3-year rule. So either way, they're an open, and their show is called Adagio, and they're using Adagio for strings, which is one of my favorite pieces. I love Adagio for strings. And Onyx World is also using Adagio for strings. It'll be interesting to see what their take is on it. And they have a black floor with teal lines on an arc across the floor. So if you're looking at the floor, kind of a rainbowy motion from the front corner up towards back center and then across the back and just slightly coming down on side 2. And then they have another one that starts further back on side 1 that kind of connects. So you have these 2 arcs that are a series of lines. And then they have teal platform props that have a back to them. So think like a restaurant booth, where you have like the seat in the back, but on the ground, right? And they're on wheels, but they're low to the ground. And those are in a beautiful teal color. And the backs of those props have that same arc pattern from the floor cut into them. It looks kind of like a shiny material at first, and you realize, oh, I can see through them because it's the shiny floor. Because as they're setting up, you see people walk by and you're like, oh, they're cut out. Another very big guard. They have around 31 on the floor from what I could count. And they're in black costumes, granted flow camera. So just remember, they're in black costumes with some sort of colored sequin section, like on the on the bust, like from the Empire line up and then down the arms. I couldn't tell from the camera. I assume it looked like silver. Teal would make the most sense to match the coloring of the show. I couldn't tell what the color was, but it's like a sequiny, sparkly part of the uniform. And they open with a big movement feature before starting with a saber solo. And then they bring both weapons onto the floor. They have sabers and guns entering on the floor. One thing to note about the show is that the piece they are using is very hard to spin to and to write to because there's no real pulse, right? The tempo ebbs and flows as the piece goes, which makes it very hard to solidify counts and timing, which is something that the judges are going to take into consideration when there's no pulse, when there's no steady beat, right? To tell you 1, 2, 3, 4. When that's not there, and you kind of have to create your own count structure, you're adding a big layer of difficulty to your program. And Adagio for strings, there are times where you're like, oh yeah, I hear the tempo, and then it's just gone because there's so many long sustained notes. And then you'll have like a driving line from like the violas or the cellos in it that, oh, okay, here's a little tempo, and then they're gone. And then you're back to just these higher strings that are just kind of doing these extended notes. So kudos to programs that use this piece because it is very hard to count. And trying to get 30 people to spin together to this piece, very difficult. First flags they bring out are kind of like a grayish purple. And the mid section of the show is still a work in progress. There's some Blake moments that they need to get filled, and they'll get filled soon. Snow, I get it. Early season, totally fine. They have a nice rifle toss that explodes into blue flags on the catch. So they have this toss, and then blue just kind of explodes everywhere. Really, really cool moment. I love those when they happen in color guard. And then that leads us into a flag feature of the same blue flags. Flag features dirty. Again, they're spinning to these just sustained notes. So they have to create a tempo and a timing of their own. So this will come over time. It's very hard to spin to. So I am acknowledging the difficulty, and I'm sure the judges have as well. The show isn't finished. It's close. It's like 90% done. My focus outside of that would be the connection of the ideas and moments. I mentioned it earlier. There's a lot of perform this moment. Now we move for 8 counts to get to the next one. And by like count 6 or so, they're just waiting to start the next moment, which really kills the fluidity and the pacing. And I guarantee you this is because of the difficulty within the soundtrack itself, right? Learning how to pace the moments so they blend together seamlessly is going to really help this program succeed because they are using such a tricky piece of music. So they know where they're supposed to start and they just get there and you can see that hesitation, like there's a count or 2, and then they start spinning again. So just ironing out those moments of getting it so it all flows naturally together and they go right from one moment into the other will help this dramatically. I look forward to seeing this again once it's done. So congrats to National Avenue. Let's move on to Independent World. We have 4 groups here. 4th place was Pride of Missouri State, and their show is called If You Love Somebody. And the music is If You Love Somebody, Set Them Free by the Tierney Sutton Band. And real talk, y'all. I I love you guys, and real talk. This show is just too much. It's just, there's a lot going on in this show. The uniforms you can see probably from the International Space Station, and I mean that as an absolute compliment. They are so sparkly and so shiny. It is sequins and glitter galore. Gorgeous. Like you see them just walk and they look like a jar of glitter. It's beautiful. They have 8 exterior birdcage prop pieces that they use, and then they have a central prop piece as well to make up the center of a bird cage, and they take up a lot of space on the floor. They move the props a lot, and they seem to be constantly moving, and I wish they would move them less because it takes away from the performers being able to spin. The show feels incredibly cramped because they have 30 or so performers on the floor, probably more, plus the props, which are huge. And there are some great moments when they set the stage with the props to allow the performers to be featured and spin, but then they get right back to moving them. And it feels like we're moving them just to move them because it's world class. Like, oh, we got to have something going on because it's world class. And then many of them just kind of end up where they started. So they'll take a prop, they'll move it over here, and they go back to where they started. They take this little trip around the floor, then they come right back. And they move them a lot. And it's distracting. And I think that's not the problem with the show, but just my issue with the show is the props move too much. They'll move them for 16, hold for 16, and then move them for another 16, and it's just on a repeat, just on a loop. The coolest moment of the show is when they do bring all of the birdcage props together and they assemble the birdcage, and the entire color guard is inside the birdcage, except for one solo flag on the outside. And then the lyrics say, "Set them free," and the cage explodes, and out comes everyone with a new flag for a flag feature, setting the color guard free, right? I love when people play with the lyrics of the songs. Great. But it is way too cramped because they do this flag feature and they're just, it's a lot, y'all. It's a lot. And I'm sorry, I'm ragging on this. I don't mean to, but this is where I'd focus my attention. Move the props less and showcase the performers. These amazing spinners feel like an afterthought to the props when they shouldn't be. So, and I love you, I promise. Please don't hate me. I love you, I promise. I want you all to succeed and I want you all to be great. And I'm so distracted by the props moving all over the place that I can't focus on the spinners. Third place was Lavoot Performance Ensemble, and their show was called This Version of You. And they were promoted from Independent Open last year. They were the bronze medalists, and this is their first year in World. They have a fast-paced music piece underneath that's like piano and violin, and then over it is a Maya Angelou spoken word reading one of her poems. They have a giant prop, which is like one of those old giant mirrors that would rotate around. Like, it has like the bar that goes through the middle of it, so it can rotate vertically, like it can come down towards your face and all that. But it's just a frame. They don't have the actual mirror part. They open with body and saber, and they do this cool toss where they use a person as a bridge, and then they toss over them while going under them. And they move into weapons and flags, and they have a really nice, I call it indigo and white flag. Like, it's like a purpley blue, which is what indigo is. If you've ever heard that Peppa Pig song, like I have 50,000 times because of my kids, indigo, it's bluey purple, right? They have some really nice weapon movements with some high ensemble tosses, just like you'd expect in a world-class show. They use the prop regularly, and they have a person sitting on it, using it like a swing and such. Like, there's a lot of use of the prop. And they did have a huge across-the-floor exchange go awry. Unfortunately, the performer who was supposed to chuck their gun dropped, had to go run and get it, and then they just kind of turned around and chucked it, which made the receiver drop it. But so kind of like a, ooh, but when it's done right, it'll be a really cool moment because it's literally chucked like across the floor. And you know what? They recovered well. They handled it like true world-class performers. They didn't get rattled by it, and recoveries on the sheet. So great job there. They have a nice rifle and body section in the middle before we transition to the ending flag feature. It's a really pretty flag that is mostly white with like staining of yellow and burgundy on it. I'm doing a really bad job describing this. I know I am. I'm sorry. But it's really pretty. It's a very pretty flag. And then they give us a full ensemble flag feature. Every single World Guard gave us a flag feature, which I am here for. Yes, flag features, please. And then after the flag feature, they end the show with the entire guard running through the mirror frame as it's pulled across the floor. So they're pulling it from side one corner to side two corner in the back. And the guard's running down and they hop on this prop and jump through the mirror. And I'm not sure this fully works. And this is probably what I would look at if this were my color guard, because it seems very cumbersome to pull this prop across the floor while the guard's trying to run through it. Because you have these we're talking physics now, you have dueling energy, and like these three people that are pulling this prop are struggling to get this to keep it moving as all these bodies are running at it and hopping on it, just basically killing any momentum they have. So just some kinks to work out there, but the show itself is very solid. It's a very similar feel and vibe to what they did last year for sure. But that's what I would look at is just kind of this prop, especially at the ending. It's like, how can we make this not look so difficult? Like those three people, God, they look like they're trying to pull like have you ever been to like a county fair and you have the tractor pulls and they get towards the end and the truck just can't pull anymore? That's kind of what they look like they're doing. So. Second place, we have Anisadora and their show entitled Enmeshed. And first things first, let's address the elephant in the room. How do you say this name? I'm confused. The announcer's confused. We're all confused. Can somebody from this guard please just clarify to us all? Thanks. Thank you, Booski. Because I'm just going to say Anisadora, but I've heard so many different things. The music is Digging in the Dirt by Peter Gabriel, and it's a nice up-tempo piece. And this show was my favorite of the weekend from Kansas City. It's really cool. They're in like a standard color guard patchwork unitard, just like the standard unitard that has like the patches on the chest and then a different color in the leg. And, just like you would see in any color guard catalog. But they add this really cool strap that I think goes from like a shoulder to a knee. And you can see it in pictures and stuff. It just kind of hangs there. But all the performers have one. And they have these props that are like interwoven straps that they manipulate around. Eventually, later in the show, they lay them down and they connect them and they lift the straps up to make these like webs and like people are stuck in them like they're enmeshed. It's just the theming is very strong with this one. And they use these straps a lot on their body. And it reminded me of Trumbull 2018, I believe, when they did the Bound show and their hands were bound together almost like handcuffs. And they spun for almost half the show with their hands bound together. This is giving me very strong vibes of that, where the straps add this extra layer of difficulty and ingenuity, and they incorporate the straps into so much that they do. Their body work, their equipment work, they wrap their equipment in it, or they'll use it underneath a toss, like they'll toss in the air, they grab the strap and push across their body, and then they let go of the strap and catch their equipment. I'm telling you, they use it so much. This was a great surprise for me, this show. They open with body and they move really well. Those Colorado guards, I mean, when you think back to like Oracle, they were great movers as well. The Colorado guards like to dance. They do saber and body before adding a red flag to the mix. All of their work incorporates the strap hanging off their body in some way. Like they are constantly using it, which I love, but they don't do it all the time. They do it like 80% of the time, which is perfect, I think. They move into an all rifle feature, which is very cool and continues to use the straps on the uniforms. They wrap the gun in it, they toss and do all this stuff with the strap. It's just, yeah. They eventually add some blue flags and then they move into a flag feature with everybody on blue. And then the show just stops, which unfortunately, they're not done. So you can tell there's more because they stopped. The soundtrack kept playing and then it kind of just quickly filtered out and they say, the Isadora from Arvada, Colorado. So clearly the show's not done. It's very close to being done. But I like this one a lot, like a lot. And just finish the show. That's what I would do. Just finish the show. I think what you have is great. I don't see any major pacing issues at the moment. I would just finish it because, yeah, I really like this. And, it's my sleeper pick right now for finals. I know it's early, but remember, Independent World is such a tough class to make finals in because we have, 35 groups, 36, and only 15 make finals. And let's be real, groups like Paramount, Fantasia, Etude, Fusion, Blessed Sack, they're already going to make finals unless something freaky happens. So these guards that are clawing for those last like 7 spots, you have so many guards fighting for that bottom half of Independent World to make finals. So this is a sleeper pick for me for finals. I hope to see it in there. They keep working. I think they could. I think this is excellent. Okay, our winner in Independent World was Malachi, and their show is called First Take, a tribute to Roberta Flack. And it starts with a voiceover, like an interview with Roberta Flack, and then the soundtrack transitions into First Time Ever I Saw Your Face. It's an iconic song of hers. Somebody else is using it this year. I saw a show announcement. And they didn't have issues. Flo had issues in prelims where there was no sound on the feed. So I was able to catch their finals performance and hear the soundtrack. So the first time I'm like, I don't know what they're doing. Like I'm I'm just watching them spin in silence. But finals, they got that fixed. They start with body into a sky-high rifle solo, and then more rifles begin to enter while we dance. And they have a cool rifle toss where 5 guns toss in the air, and then a dancer torchetes into their arms, and then the dancers catch the gun, not the rifle person who tossed it. They introduce 2 solo flags, a red and a blue one. And I will say their flag book is a little uninspired to me. I feel like their flag line is an afterthought, which is one of my biggest pet peeves in color guard, just in general, is all the focus being given to the weapons. So I'm already going to say it now. If this were my color guard, I would give my flags more to do because I hate when flag lines are an afterthought. Just because they don't spin a weapon doesn't mean they don't deserve moments. They don't deserve to be featured. Flag line is amazing. And respect the flags. Please respect your flag lines, guys. They have a red and a blue solo flag. I'm not sure what the point of those are. I don't know. I'd have to go back or on a rewatch and see kind of how it relates to the soundtrack. But they have a solo red flag and a solo blue flag that come out. And I don't know the importance of the red versus the blue. Maybe they're doing like a two sides of a coin kind of thing, like the hot and the cold kind of thing, where they're opposites. After a little more weapon feature with the two solo flags, including another human bridge toss, they work their way to the front side two corner of the floor, and they have a saber duet in the center of the floor, which then leads into a saber moment of the show. And again, the flag work here just feels really uninspired. I'm sorry. Like, I just, please give your flags something special, please. Flags need love too. It continues to build, and we have more and more of these blue flags entering from that same side two corner. And then we have a nice big flag feature on the perimeter. And yeah, like I said, all four of these independent world guards gave us a flag feature, which I love. So if this were my program, look at that flag work. It just doesn't read as world class to me. What they do have feels like an afterthought. And I'm just being honest. I wish they gave their flags more to do, especially for a world class program. But congrats to you on first place. I look forward to seeing it again. Hopefully, I can see it with the soundtrack working. That was not your fault. That was Flo's. But that's a wrap on all the shows. But before I sign off, I do have that funny story to tell you about the interaction I had with Chris. So we're going to jump back to 2013. So I'm teaching a local guard. We'd performed. So I'm up in the stands with my fellow instructors, just watching everybody else like we always do. And local guard is performing. And this guard's pretty good. As the program was blossoming, and they had a superstar performer. He had marched drum corps, just kind of one of those standout kids. And the show we're at had one of those curtains that drops down along the 50 to divide the court into two smaller courts. You've seen it, right? So obviously it was pulled up and in the ceiling for the show. And we're watching, and out comes this guard with this very talented boy who is heavily featured due to his abilities. And he has a toss on the 50. Well, it went up, it hit the curtain, went flying like 15 feet, and obviously hit the floor. And this was a legit toss too. This is not one of those like regional A5s that goes up and takes out a light. And then this was like a good like 7 or something. But anyway, fast forward, they're done. We're in the hallway, I think just waiting for critique or something like that, or we're going to be going to critique soon. And I'm standing in the hall with the friend that I taught with, and we see this same boy walking our direction, headed to the auditorium or whatever. So she quickly just said, "Hey, great job out there today." And this little twink with a blade had the audacity to snap around and in the nastiest little tone goes, "Thanks," and kept walking. Y'all, my, my friend was ready to fight this little boy because she was just like, "Excuse me?" Like, it was just like one of those moments. And oh my God, it was just, I still remember this day. I still remember this day. So we're going to jump back to now. And I posted an Imachi clip on my Instagram, and Chris had just happened to message me about it, about how much that show inspired him to march. And it kind of really solidified why he wanted to march color guard and all of this. And it just led to us having a conversation. We're just chatting, and we found out we're both from the same circuit. And then he mentioned he marched this school, and then a light bulb went off in my head. And I was like, "Wait, did you march, this show and this show?" And he was like, "Yeah." And then I was like, "I have a story for you. We've met before." And he goes, "Oh my God." And he goes, before I even tell the story, he was like, "I was such a snotty little brat." He's like, what happened?" And then I tell him the story, and we laughed for so long about it. And he knows I'm telling you the story, and everything's all good now. But that sassy little twink with a blade, let me tell you, Lord help us. But he was like, "Yeah, that sounds about right." And I'm sorry. So that's what I love about this activity, is on how one little color guard clip can connect people. And yeah, so that's my funny story about him. So, hey, Chris. Next week is the Corning Regional, and that one is a bit smaller, but I'm still going to cover it. So I'll see you back next week with that one. Also, I will be at the Indie Regional. So if you're going to be there, come say hi, because I'd love to meet any listeners. So until then, stay safe, stay fabulous, and remember, at the end of the day, it's just flags in a gym.